Let's talk about something as American as apple pie cars. But not just any cars, Japanese cars. For decades, brands like Toyota and Honda haven't just sold cars here, they've built them here, investing billions, creating jobs and fueling local economies. When you see a Camry or CR-V, think Georgetown, Kentucky or Lincoln, Alabama, not just Tokyo. These companies hire American workers, partner with US suppliers and pay American taxes. The line between foreign and domestic is blurrier than ever. Is a Toyota Tundra built in Texas really foreign? Or a Ford made in Mexico truly domestic? The global auto industry is a tangled web, and Japanese automakers are a massive part of America's section. The economic impact goes far beyond factories, supporting everything from local diners to steel mills. Japanese automakers' annual payroll in the US is over $93 billion. That's mortgages paid, college tuitions covered, and communities thriving. Yet, some in Washington want to upend this system with a blunt, destructive tool, a massive tariff. Enter the proposed 25% tariff on all Japanese vehicles and auto parts. A sledgehammer, not a scalpel. The justification? National security. The claim Japanese cars somehow threaten America's safety. This argument, rooted in a Cold War law, is wildly out of touch. The Honda Accord isn't a stealth bomber. This tariff targets 7 major Japanese automakers, industry titans, not fringe players. It doesn't just tax imported cars, it hits the parts that supply American factories, punishing companies for building here too. The goal is to protect American jobs, but whose jobs? Hundreds of thousands of Americans work for these foreign companies. The tariff doesn't care if a car is built in Ohio or Yokohama. It treats all Japanese brands as the enemy. In the name of protecting American industry, this policy actually targets American workers. It's a self-defeating move that pits communities against each other under the guise of patriotism. The result? A policy that hurts the very people it claims to help. The numbers are staggering. In 2023, Japanese brands held 44% of the US auto market, over 6.3 million vehicles sold. But most aren't just shipped in, they're built here. Toyota made 1.25 million vehicles in the US last year. Honda, nearly a million. Nissan, over 770,000. These companies generate $170 billion in annual US sales, and the broader ecosystem, fuel, insurance, repairs, tops $1.3 trillion. This supports over 500,000 American jobs, 96,000 in manufacturing, 227,000 at suppliers, 113,000 in local businesses, and 17,000 in finance and admin. And the tax impact? Japanese automakers and their supply chains contribute $31 billion a year in federal, state, and local taxes. That's money for schools, roads, and public services. These aren't just numbers, they're the backbone of communities across the country. A tariff threatens to unravel this entire system. The economic activity, jobs, and tax revenue at stake are enormous. This isn't pocket change, it's the lifeblood of American towns. Disrupting it would have consequences far beyond the auto industry. What happens if you drop a 25% tariff into this ecosystem? Job loss, on a massive scale. Over 500,000 American workers and their families would be at risk, from factory floors to local diners. For every assembly line job lost, 2 more at suppliers disappear. Small businesses that depend on auto plants would be devastated. The pain would ripple out, hitting towns and rural communities that rely on these jobs. In states like Alabama and Ohio, unemployment could spike by up to 2.6 percentage points, enough to tip regions into recession. The promise of bringing jobs back would ring hollow as communities are hollowed out. This isn't just about paychecks, it's about stability, community, and hope. All sacrificed for a trade war that American workers can't win. Now, let's talk about the impact on consumers. A 25% tariff means higher prices, thousands more for the cars Americans want most. Japanese brands dominate hybrids and subcompact SUVs. The tariff would add $4,400 to the average new hybrid. Suddenly, fuel-efficient cars become luxury items, and affordable family vehicles are out of reach. Used car prices would spike too, as more buyers flood the market, making reliable transportation less accessible for millions. The result? Inflation, fewer choices, and a regressive tax that hits working families hardest. Consumers would be forced to pay more, settle for less, or keep older, less safe cars longer. This policy punishes the very people it claims to protect. It's a classic case of hurting the many to benefit a few. The entire automotive ecosystem would be thrown into chaos. Some say, let Detroit fill the gap. But that's a fantasy. US automakers can't instantly replace 6 million Japanese brand vehicles, their factories are already at capacity, and building new ones takes years and billions. Detroit is focused on trucks, SUVs and EVs, while Japanese brands dominate sedans, subcompacts and hybrids. American companies lack the platforms and supply chains to suddenly produce millions of affordable hybrids and sedans. The result? Shortages of the cars Americans want, price spikes and long waiting lists. The few remaining sedans and hybrids would become unaffordable, while overall supply shrinks. Consumers would face fewer choices, higher prices, and economic uncertainty. The market disruption would be severe and long-lasting. The damage wouldn't stop at cars. Japanese automakers are major US taxpayers. If their market share drops, the federal budget loses up to $21 billion a year. Over 3 years, that's $60 billion less for infrastructure, defense and social programs, but there's a bigger risk. Japan is one of the largest holders of US Treasury bonds, over $1 trillion. If the US targets Japan's auto industry, Japan could retaliate by selling off bonds, driving up US borrowing costs. Even a small sell-off could raise interest rates, making mortgages, car loans and credit cards more expensive for everyone. The tariff would blow a hole in the budget and raise costs for American families. It's an economic cell phone, hurting the very foundations of the US economy, all to protect an industry that's already deeply intertwined with Japanese companies. The ripple effects would be felt in every corner of the economy. It's all pain, no gain. The long-term damage goes beyond jobs and money. It's about innovation. For decades, Japanese automakers have shared lean manufacturing and just-in-time systems, revolutionizing American factories. Nearly 200,000 US workers have been trained in these methods, boosting productivity and quality. A tariff would slam the door on this vital exchange, cutting off access to the next wave of manufacturing innovation. Japanese brands lead in hybrid technology, forcing them out would set America back years in a key automotive field. We'd lose not just competitors but partners who push us to be better. The result? Stagnation, lost competitiveness, and isolation from the world's best ideas. All for a short-sighted trade policy that weakens American industry. So here's the bottom line. A 25% tariff on Japanese autos is a loaded gun pointed at our own economy. It threatens over 500,000 jobs, billions in tax revenue, and makes cars more expensive for everyone. It's built on the fantasy that Detroit can instantly replace Japanese brands, ignoring the reality of years and billions needed to catch up. It risks a financial crisis by antagonizing one of our biggest creditors. This isn't strength, it's economic self-harm. The real path forward is smart, strategic policy, not a reckless trade war that hurts American workers, consumers, and communities. Let's not amputate a limb to fix a splinter. America deserves better.